All right, what's up, everybody? I have a few more questions this time about exercise. Again, in the poll, you guys said that you wanted more exercise and fitness information and in a video format, and I'm going to keep mixing it up because all this stuff is important, but again, I want to respond because you guys said this is what you wanted. So, a few questions about exercise. We'll go with the same format where it's sort of a longer form explanation, but if you're really in a hurry, just jump to the end of the video and look at the short tips that are written here on the document. And that way you get the information either in a longer form or you just skip right to the end for the tips. So there's a lot of explanation going on. There's a lot of background, but if you just want the short tips, there they go. So how do you put exercises together? So this is a good question about sort of the program and general good practice. So the idea behind all strength and conditioning is to start with a goal, where you want to be, and then work backwards because you have to be specific about what you're doing in order to get a certain result from your body. So a great example is running isn't going to make your biceps bigger, right? So lifting weights probably won't make you a better marathon runner, but running is going to help you be able to train in the gym longer so you can do more bicep curls and get bigger curls that way. But it's indirect. You see that difference? Versus maybe doing a bunch of squats won't automatically make your mile time go down. But if your legs are stronger, then they're better able to carry your weight. And so in your running training, you can then run faster in training, which is going to help your mile time that way. So again, it's indirect. We have to start with your specific goal and then do specific things that will get you to your goal. So a great example is right now in our training cycle, if you're watching this way in the future, then this is probably still true, the way that we're going to do things. We're starting with the goal of safely and confidently and comfortably using heavy barbells for lots of weight. And now that's very relative, right? So heavy weight for you is going to be different than me, different than the person next to you, different than the person that you see across the gym. But the idea is to be comfortable with the barbell and to be able to progressively add weight over time. So that's our goal. That's where we want to get to because we might not be there right now. So if we want to get to comfortably moving a barbell, how do we pick exercises that are going to help us get there? Well, what I had to do is I identified a few very, very common things that folks tend to be weaker at or aren't as practiced with. And we're going to keep developing those things. And the culmination of all those things is going to equal comfort with the barbell. So a great example is in deadlifts. A lot of folks struggle because they can't move their hips very well. And so they move their spine too much. So think if your back is super rounded in a deadlift, I'm sure you've heard that one before. Usually the problem is you have a hard time moving your hips in space. They're supposed to move horizontally instead of just planting and then your back just curves and your back is doing all the work. So we're doing a lot of work to practice the skill of deadlifts, right? We're doing the deadlift progression and we're doing a lot of glute and hamstring work so that you can get more comfortable moving your hips in space. So again, our specific goal was get to comfortably moving a barbell. We identified the problem of not using your hips enough. And so we're choosing exercises now that are going to help you use your hips more. That's how we're going to put exercise together in this program is we have a specific goal and we have specific tools that are going to get us there. So if you're trying to, hang a picture on the wall, what tools do you need? You probably need some nails and you probably need a hammer. Those are your tools. If you're trying to paint the wall, a hammer is not going to help you do that, but a paintbrush is perfect, right? So we have specific goals and we need specific tools to do that. So another layer here is how do we arrange arrange the exercises in a session? So that's how we pick exercises, but how do you know what to do when? The first thing that you always want to do is warm up, right? Do a lot of general things to make sure your whole body is ready for exercise. And we'll get into that a little bit more, probably in a different video. But then you want to start with things that require a high level of skill. You want to do that first when you're fresh, because if you're really tired, right? Like when you get home from a long day, do you want to, immediately go home and start learning how to play the guitar? Like, no, right? You're tired, and so it's hard to motivate yourself to, dedicate a ton of brain power to a new skill. So we want to start with the skill when you're fresh, and that's why we do the progressions first. The cool thing about the progressions is that they also warm you up even more for what we're doing later because you're still moving, you're still using the muscles that we want. Another cool thing about the progressions, and again, I'm super happy with these, is that you're actually going to tire out the muscles that we don't want to use. So all you're left with is the muscles that we do want to use. So take, for example, if we're doing like the single leg progression, before like a squatting day. You're going to do that single leg progression and your quads, the front of your thigh is probably going to get pretty tired, So by the time we actually pick up a barbell for normal squats, your hamstrings and glutes are still fresh, and so your body's going to say, well, let me use those instead of these muscles that are already tired. So now, not only do we get the benefit of practicing single leg work, now when we go to do our squats, the other muscles that we really do want to be using are that much more active. They're there for you, so we can train those as well. So how do you put exercise together? You want to start with a warm-up, and then go to your high skill stuff. And then you want to go in a descending order of complexity. This is very general advice. So for example, you wouldn't do a warm-up and then your progression and then run 10 miles and then, do a bunch of lunges and then go for your heavy squats at the very end, right? Because the more complex a movement is, usually the harder it is for your brain and for your body. So we don't want to do things that are sort of more physically and mentally demanding when you're already as tired as you can be. So we're going to, after your skill stuff, then we're going to go with our heavier, more complex movements like a back squat, a deadlift, a bench press, a pen lay row, stuff like that. And then after that, we're going to go down to the next level of complexity, focusing on a weakness. Again, something that was maybe, hindering you or preventing you from doing more in the more complex thing. So again, in the case of a back squat, the next thing we would do, for most folks, they struggle with their hamstrings and their glutes. You might notice a theme there. So we want to do something that's going to focus on your hamstrings and glutes, like, say, a dumbbell Romanian deadlift, right? It's a little less complicated, right? It's dumbbells instead of a barbell. You're just holding them in your hands. You don't have to worry about bracing your whole body. You should, but not as much as a heavy back squat. And then you're just going to hinge at the hips. It's a little bit simpler, but it's still working on your weaknesses. It's still helping you progress because you're getting better at things you need to get better at. And then at the very, very end, we might do something like glute bridges, like 100 glute bridges, break it up however you want, right? So it's the least complex thing, and it's the one that you can really burn out and get as tired as possible as long as your technique is good, because we don't need your body for anything else after that. Right? I mean, normal life, absolutely, but we're not doing any more complex exercise afterwards. So if you're tired, like going about the rest of your day is a lot safer than getting as tired as you can and then doing a bunch of heavy back squats, right? That doesn't sound like a recipe for success. So again, we're going to start with our warm-up. We'll probably write this down then. Uh-oh, I keep doing that. You'd think I'd learn my lesson. Okay, here we go. So warm-up, skill work, heavy work, and then descending, complexity, and weight. That's how we're going to put exercises together. Again, it's about having a specific goal, and choose the right tools. There you go. All right, next question. Why are the progressions laid out the way they are? So we got into this a little bit a second ago, but the progressions are about taking folks of all different levels and giving them the different movements that they'll need, whatever level that they're at, to get to the next level, whatever that next level looks like. So let's take the push-ups, for example. The first movement in the push-up progression is a dumbbell floor press. So for folks that struggle with shoulder issues or maybe wrist or elbow issues or even back issues, the floor press is a great movement because it's going to limit your range of motion into a short distance that you're actually moving the weights that most people can do no matter what they have going on. You can use light weights, but you're not putting so much stress on your shoulders because you can't go that far, right? Your elbows bump into the ground, so you can't go down. The next level up is the dumbbell bench press, so it's exactly the same movement, but now you can move your elbows further in space, you can move your shoulders more, and so it's one level more complex. And it's one level closer to the push-up, our final goal, right? So in a push-up, your elbows don't stop when they're in line with your body, they stop when they're all the way back and your chest is on the ground. Which does that look more like, the floor press or the bench press? The bench press. So again, we're closer to the push-ups. The next one after that is the hands elevated push-up. Now it really looks like a push-up, because it's exactly the same thing, except your body is at an angle. Now we're starting to talk more about leverages, because the more of an angle your body's at, the less gravity is pulling straight down. And so it's actually more forces in your lower body, and so it's easier. But if we can get good at that and then go to your knees where you're at slightly more of an angle, again, gravity isn't all coming down. You have this nice displacement here into your knees. It's easier. There's less weight because think, if your knees are on the ground, your whole shin, right, from your knee to your foot isn't part of the equation. So you're actually moving less weight, but it's closer to what a final push-up is going to look like. And then we have our final variation, which is the push-up. And so you see everything gets more and more and more complex. It gets closer to a push-up, our final goal. But the cool thing about the progressions is wherever you stop, so say you stop at the hands elevated push-ups because that's, you say you can do 2, but not the whole 10, and we don't want to spend all 10 minutes trying to get one more like hands elevated push-up. Say you get that far, if you go back to the beginning, the 2 or 3 things that you can do will all help you get better at the thing you can't do. So if you stop at hands elevated push-ups and you go back to the floor press and then the bench press, okay, the bench press is going to help you have more strength in your shoulders so that you can push a little bit with a little bit more force and move your body weight a little bit more. So the hands elevated push-ups get easier. And again, your shoulder range of motion is very similar because your elbows go all the way back in the dumbbell bench press, just like they do in the hands elevated push-up. So each step along the way is going to help you get better at the next step. And wherever you stop, if you go back to the beginning, all of those details, all of the different movements that you did up until you had to stop will help you move on to the next level. That's how the progressions are laid out. The idea is to start simple and get more complex and build in the work you need to move up in skill level. Uh-oh. All right, cool. Next one. Am I getting enough of a workout from these progressions? So it depends on where you're at. It depends on your skill level and how long you've been working out and generally your strength. It depends on a lot of things. Am I getting enough of a workout from these progressions? For some people, absolutely. For some people, this is going to be super challenging. You're going to say to yourself, I'm doing IYTs for 10 minutes and I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. An interesting thing is if you can only do IYTs, I believe that's the pull-up progression, then something about your technique is probably, that's where you would want to submit a video and I can take a look at it, because IYTs and then the next few steps in that progression actually are things that just about anybody can do unless you have an injury that I don't know about. So if there's a technique piece that's missing that would make it really hard, or if it's a creativity issue of figuring out how to do movements in a foreign gym that don't have all the pieces of equipment that you need, then 100% reach out and let me know and that'll help you move on. But for the general sort of population, doing these progressions for 10 minutes will get the job done, because wherever you are in that progression, again, take the pull-ups, say you can go all the way to the end and do, kipping chest to bar pull-ups, or you can even do, bar muscle-ups, who knows. By going through that progression a couple of times in 10 minutes, you're accumulating so much high-quality work that you are getting a great workout from those things. The only reason why I would hesitate to say that, that those progressions are perfect, they're enough, we don't have to do anything else, and you could do this whole program from home, I don't want to say that, because we all have specific weaknesses that are probably going to be exposed in the progressions. We're all going to hit a point in the progressions where, again, take the person who can do a bunch of bar muscle-ups. For 10 minutes, you go through that cycle over and over and over again. You'll get to a point where one of those movements doesn't feel as good as the others because something is tired. Some, smaller muscle or some specific body part is just more tired than the others. And if we weren't doing the progressions, we're never going to give that specific muscle or that, body part extra work to be able to catch up with everything else. So we need to be able to do sort of these whole workouts and make sure you're going to the gym and using the equipment, because again, this is an at-gym equipment. It's not just an at-home program, because we need to be able to work on your specific weaknesses, because if you can make your weaknesses stronger, everything will get stronger. A good example is, say, in a deadlift. If you're struggling with your deadlift because we can't keep your back flat, okay, well, like we talked about before, you need to be able to move your hips in space, and you need to be able to keep your core tight. And just doing more deadlifts isn't going to teach you how to do those things. But doing a bunch of glute bridges and dumbbell Romanian deadlifts and good mornings and practicing sumo deadlift, these things will help you learn that skill. It would be like saying you need to learn how to write in cursive, but the only way you can learn how to write in cursive is to just try loops until they end up as letters. That doesn't make sense, right? We need to break it down into individual letters, and then how do those letters connect? just like with a deadlift, you need to do all the individual pieces and then figure out how to put them together. So basically, it's like learning anything. So am I getting enough of a workout from these progressions? Maybe, but we all have weaknesses we need to work on separately. Boom. All right. Next question is, why aren't we doing any running or jumping? And some might say, why aren't we doing any cardio at all? So I'll address that second question first. We actually are doing a lot of cardio. Traditional cardio, maybe not, of going for a run or CrossFit if that's your thing, or walking on the treadmill for a half hour. I mean, any of that stuff. We're not doing that stuff specifically because the point of this program is we're condensing a lot of things so that we can fit it all in and not be crunched for time and spend 3 hours in the gym. So if we did all this program and then I said at the end, hey, walk on the treadmill for an hour, we'd all be like, no, ain't nobody got time for that, right? The point is that I need to get home and make dinner for my kids, or I just finished work and I'm smoked. Like, we don't have time for that. So running and building a traditional cardio, part of that is a time crunch, but we're also touching on that cardio element with the progressions, because if you're constantly moving for 10 minutes, which is what you should be if we're doing the progressions, right? If you hit a point where you have to like rest for a minute, 90 seconds, 2 minutes before you can do one more rep of that thing, that's wrong. We want to get as far as you can, try a few times, but then circle back to the beginning so you're moving the whole 10 minutes. And that's a 10-minute AMRAP. Now you're moving the whole time. That's cardio. That gets a job done. Jumping and running are similar in that they both have a high level of impact on your joints. Right? If you think jumping, like you're going up and then gravity's pulling you all the way down until you hit the ground and have to absorb that force of hitting the ground. So for a lot of us, we're starting from a place of relearning how to squat, how to deadlift, how to do a lot of sort of fundamental natural movements. And jumping requires you to have already mastered things like squatting. In order to jump repeatedly safely, if you have a hard time squatting, the same reasons that your squat isn't perfect, those same reasons are the ones that'll get you hurt if you try to do too much jumping. So again, we're not jumping on a box yet. We're not doing any vertical or broad jumps yet. You might even notice we're not doing a lot of burpees yet. It's because right now we're focusing on building up your joints and your movement patterns to do those things safely. And that's a problem I see in a lot of programs, is throwing in a lot of jumping too soon. Folks say, yeah, there's, we have box jumps in the program, but we can do step-ups instead. Well, they're different, and doing the step-ups, unless you're thinking about it clearly, might not be helping you learn that new pattern. You're just doing whatever you can, and we're actually perpetuating a bad movement. So that's why I like the progressions better, is because they get cardio in there for you, and they help you learn the fundamental skills we'll be using later when we do add things like jumping and the barbell lifts, because we are going to get there eventually. So why aren't we doing any running or jumping? Progressions are plenty of cardio for now, and we're managing impact on your joints. The last one, I think this is a really interesting question because it comes from a place of sort of your past experience and your bias, and we all have our biases based on our experience. So I don't feel completely destroyed after most workouts. Am I working hard enough? And this question kind of has a logical fallacy in it, because that's assuming that workouts is at all connected to sort of working hard enough to see success. So remember at the beginning, we talked about we have a goal and then we have our specific tools that we need in order to achieve that goal. So for a lot of us, destroying yourselves in a workout right now is not productive. It is not going to help you do better. It's not going to help you get healthier or make progress, because your body receives a stimulus, so working out, and then it needs to recover from that stimulus, right? Great nutrition, sleep enough, manage your stress, and then it needs to sort of rebound and accommodate. So your body's learning to handle that stress through recovery and get better and compensate for that sort of that stimulus that you gave it. And if you're always working out so hard that you can't recover, you're not going to get any better. And in fact, you're going to go backwards. We're going to break things down. Or you're working out really, really hard and you're recovering a lot, but you're working out too hard to recover and accommodate and get better. Well, that's also you're not going to see any progress doing that either. So you don't want to be totally destroyed after these workouts. And I think by totally destroyed, I mean like flopping on the ground, can't breathe, like can't walk after leg day or something, stuff like that. Like, this program shouldn't interfere with your normal life too much, Being a little sore is perfectly normal. Even on some days, being very sore is perfectly normal. But if you can't, like, you do like a strict press day and you can't reach up to get something from a shelf, that's something that we'd want to talk about. So I don't feel completely destroyed after most workouts. Am I working hard enough? Probably yes, but it's an individual question and needs to be answered in, oh, come on now, individually. There you go. Okay. So that's a few exercise questions that folks have had. I just wanted to make sure that this stuff was out there. And again, it's in a format that you guys asked for. So if you want more text or if you want more nutrition or you like this, we're talking about fitness in video content, or excuse me, video contents, then context. Wow. Okay. Let me know that too. If you have more questions like these or about anything, leave them in the comments. I'll answer those too. Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.